How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, November 28th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances that took place yesterday on Saturday, November 27th. And of course, first, just to take a quick step back and take a quick look at where we are in the calendar year. With baseball being over, the awards have been announced, but I'll announce them in a couple of days. In terms of football, college football just came off of its last Saturday of the regular season, as there are still conference championship games and bowl games left. In terms of the NFL for football, the NFL season is right now on its 12th Sunday in its 18-week season, so we are exactly 2/3 of the way through its season. The NBA, or starting with, going to basketball, college basketball is about a few weeks in as it's getting started. Same with the NBA, as we still have a few more months of good basketball left, especially and of course hockey as well. And not to mention what's going on overseas as teams are getting back into their domestic matches as they're still approaching the half-point way in the season, which is the new year. And with that said, I'm going to jump first into what's going on with college football from yesterday's in-state rivalry matchups. Starting off with the number one ranked football team in the nation, the Georgia Bulldogs went to Atlanta to face off against the unranked Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They will go and shut out the Jackets 45-0 to win the game. They shut out Georgia Tech 24-0 in the first half and 21-0 in the second. The first-ranked Bulldogs were led by their starting quarterback, Stetson Bennett. He threw for 255 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also ran for an additional 7. That's 262 total yards of offense for Stetson Bennett. Their leading ball carrier, Kenny McIntosh, would finish with 2 carries for 66 yards as he had a touchdown on the ground. He also had 2 receptions for 18 yards through the air. He would go on to finish with 84 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Brock Bowers, had 3 receptions for 100 yards as he had 2 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Nakobe Dean would lead the team in tackles as he had 6 of them. With this win, the first-ranked Georgia Bulldogs are now 12-0 to finish their regular season. Now taking a look at what is going on with the second-ranked team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes, went all the way to Ann Arbor to face off against the 5th-ranked Michigan Wolverines. The Wolverines would get the better of Ohio State, winning this matchup 42-27, giving Jim Harbaugh his first win as the Michigan coach over Ohio State. Michigan outscored Ohio State 14-13 in the first half before outscoring Ohio State 28-14 in the second half as they shut Ohio State out 14-0 in the third quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the second-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes were led by their starting quarterback, C.J. Stroud. He threw for 394 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading ball carrier, Travion Henderson, had 17 carries for 74 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He had 5 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown through the air. That's 128 total yards of scrimmage and 2 touchdowns for Travion Henderson. Ohio State's leading receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba, had 11 receptions for 127 yards. Ohio State's second leading receiver, Garrett Wilson, had 10 receptions for 119 yards and a touchdown. Their third leading receiver, Chris Olave, had 7 receptions for 88 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Ronnie Hickman would lead the Buckeyes in tackles as the team would not register a single sack. Bryson Shaw would register the team's lone interception as it would go alongside his 6 tackles. And on the winning end of this matchup, the Michigan Wolverines were led by their starting quarterback, Cade McNamara. He threw for 159 yards and an interception. He also ran for 9 yards. That's 168 total yards of offense. Michigan was led on the ground by Hassan Haskins. Haskins had 28 carries for 169 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground itself. He had 2 receptions for 5 yards through the air, so that's 174 total yards of offense with his 5 touchdowns. Their second leading rusher, Blake Corum, had 6 carries for 87 yards. And then through the air, their leading receiver was Roman Wilson. He had 2 receptions for 55 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Brad Hawkins and Rod Moore led the team in tackles. They each had 9 of them. Their fourth leading tackler, Aiden Hutchinson, had 7 tackles as he had 3 of the team's 4 sacks. With this win, the 5th-ranked Michigan Wolverines are now 11-1, and of course, at the conclusion of the season, will end their Big Ten campaign with an 8-1 record. With this loss, the 2nd-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes are now 10-2. They finished the regular season with an 8-1 record in the Big Ten as well. Taking a look at what went down with the 3rd-ranked team in the nation, the 3rd-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide went to Auburn to face off against their in-state rivals, the unranked Auburn Tigers. In a matchup that would end up going to 4 overtimes, Alabama would end up beating Auburn 24-22. And of course, Auburn would outscore Alabama. They were up 10-0 going into the 4th. The Crimson Tide would tie it up. And of course, the play to send it into overtime was the 28-yard touchdown pass from Bryce Young to Ja'Cory Brooks with 24 seconds left to send it here in the first place. Of course, on the winning end of this matchup, the Crimson Tide were led by their starting quarterback, Bryce Young. He threw for 317 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher, Brian Robinson Jr., had 16 carries for 71 yards on the ground. He also had 3 receptions for 29 yards, so that's exactly 100 total yards of offense for him. Alabama's leading receiver, John Mechie III, had 13 receptions for 150 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Henry To'o finished with 9 tackles on the day. Fedarian Mathis and Dallas Turner each finished with 3 tackles and a sack and a half each. And Josh Joby would finish with the team's lone interception as he had 4 tackles. With this win, the 3rd-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide are 11-1. They will finish the regular season with a 7-1 SEC record. With this loss, the unranked Auburn Tigers are 6-6, finishing their 2021 campaign with a 3-5 SEC record. Looking now at what's going on with the number 6 ranked team in the nation, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish went all the way to Palo Alto to face off against the unranked Stanford Cardinal. Notre Dame ended up beating Stanford 45-14 after they shut Stanford out in the first half 24-0. And Notre Dame would still outscore Stanford 21-14 in the second half. And of course, Notre Dame, the 6th-ranked team in the nation, was led by their starting quarterback, Jack Cohn. He threw for 345 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for negative 15 yards, but he had an additional touchdown, so he had 3 touchdowns from scrimmage. Notre Dame's leading rusher, Kyren Williams, had 19 carries for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 receptions for 20 yards through the air. That's 94 total yards of offense. Their second leading rusher, Tyler Buchner, had 30 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. Their leading receiver, Kevin Austin Jr., had 6 receptions for 125 yards. And Michael Mayer, their second leading receiver, had 9 receptions for 105 yards. Their leading tacklers were Jason Ademilola, J.D. Bertrand, Jack Kaiser, and Drew White. They each had 5 tackles on the day. Ademilola finished with a sack for himself. And of course, with this win, the 6th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish are now 11-1. And with this loss, the unranked Stanford Cardinal are now 3-9. Taking a look now at what is going on with the 7th-ranked team in the nation, the Oklahoma State Cowboys hosted the 10th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners, and the Cowboys, after trailing in the fourth quarter, would come back and eventually end up beating the Sooners. They were down 33-24 entering the fourth quarter. The Spencer Sanders touchdown run would bring them to within 2. And then with about 9 minutes left, it would be a 1-yard touchdown run from Jaylen Warren to give the Cowboys the lead that they would run away with. On the losing end of this matchup for the 10th-ranked Sooners, their starting quarterback, Caleb Williams, threw for 252 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 36 yards. That's 288 total yards of offense. Oklahoma's leading rusher, Kennedy Brooks, had 22 carries for 139 yards on the ground. He also had a 25-yard reception, so that would finish him with 164 total yards of offense. Oklahoma's leading receiver, Jeremiah Hall, had 4 receptions for 76 yards. Their second leading receiver, Austin Stogner, had 3 receptions for 61 yards as he had one of the team's 3 receiving touchdowns. Brian Asamoah led the team in tackles as he had 11 of them. And Woody Washington would have both of the team's interceptions as he had 7 tackles as well. And then on the winning end of this matchup, the 7th-ranked Cowboys were led by their starting quarterback, Spencer Sanders. Sanders threw for 214 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He was also the team's leading rusher. He ran for 93 yards and an additional touchdown. That's 307 total yards of offense for Spencer Sanders with his 2 touchdowns. Their second leading rusher, Jaylen Warren, had 17 carries for 56 yards as he had a touchdown on the ground. He had 3 receptions for 27 yards as he would go on to finish with 83 total yards of offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Malcolm Rodriguez finished with 11 tackles as he had 2 sacks. Devin Harper finished with 10 tackles as he had a sack for himself. With this win, the 7th-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys are now 11-1. They are 8-1 in the Big 12. And with this loss, the 10th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners are now officially 10-2. They dropped to 7-2 to finish their season in the Big 12. Jumping out to see what's going on with the 8th-ranked team in the nation, the Baylor Bears hosted the unranked Texas Tech Red Raiders. Baylor would end up beating Texas Tech 27-24, winning this game in the second half after Baylor outscored Texas Tech 17-10 in the first half. Texas Tech outscored Baylor 14-10 in the second half, and they would bring it to within a field goal with 6 minutes left. But of course, Baylor would keep Texas Tech from scoring anymore. The 8th-ranked Baylors were led by their starting quarterback, Blake Shapen. He threw for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. He threw for he also ran for an additional 24 yards, so that's 278 total yards of offense for Shapen. Their leading rusher, Abram Smith, had 30 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown. He also had 2 receptions for 22 yards, as he will go on to finish with 139 total yards of offense. Baylor's leading receiver, Tristan Ebner, had 4 receptions for 118 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Terrell Bernard finished with 8 tackles on the day, leading the team. With this win, the 8th-ranked Baylor Bears are now 10-2. They are now 7-2 in the Big 12. With this loss, the unranked Texas Tech Red Raiders are now 6-6 as they drop to 3-6 to finish their Big 12 campaign. Of course, now taking a look at what's going on with the 11th-ranked team in the nation, the Oregon Ducks hosted the unranked Oregon State Beavers, and Oregon would end up beating Oregon State 38-29. Oregon would outscore Oregon State 24-3 in the first half. Oregon State would outscore Oregon 26-14 in the second half, but they wouldn't really bring it that close necessarily for Oregon to really be worried. And leading Oregon was their starting quarterback, Anthony Brown. He threw for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 83 yards and an additional touchdown. He would go on to finish with 358 total yards of offense with his 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Travis Dye, had 20 yards for 99 carries as he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 4 receptions for 39 yards through the air. That's 138 total yards of offense. Oregon's leading receiver, Devin Williams, had 6 receptions for 110 yards as he had a receiving touchdown. Chris Hudson had 7 receptions for 82 yards as he had a touchdown for himself. On the defensive side of the ball, Verone McKinley III had 6 tackles as the team was unable to log a sack. And Trickweezy Bridges finished with the lone interception for the day. With this win, the 11th-ranked Oregon Ducks will finish their 2021 regular season with a 10-2 record as they finish with a 7-2 record in the Pac-12. With this loss, the unranked Oregon State Beavers are now 7-5 as they would go on to finish their Pac-12 regular season, of course, with a 5-4 record in the division. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 12th-ranked team in the nation, the Michigan State Spartans hosted the unranked Penn State Nittany Lions. Michigan State would beat Penn State 30-27 after they outscored Penn State 17-14 in the first half. Both teams would score 13 in the second. This game would come down to the very end. Penn State would bring it to within a field goal with 40 seconds left, and of course they would not be able to score after that. On the winning end of this matchup, the 12th-ranked Spartans were led by their starting quarterback, Peyton Thorne. He threw for 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for an additional 39 yards and a touchdown. That is 307 total yards of offense for him on the day with his 3 touchdowns. Michigan State's leading rusher, Kenneth Walker III, had 30 carries for 138 yards as he had a touchdown on the ground. Michigan State's leading receiver, Jaden Reed, had 6 receptions for 89 yards and one of the 2 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Cal Halliday finished with 11 tackles as he had half of a sack. Drew Beasley had 7 tackles as he had a sack and a half. And then with this win, the 12th ranked Michigan State Spartans finished their regular season with a 10-2 record. They would go on to finish the Big Ten season with a 7-2 record in the conference. And then, of course, with this loss, the unranked Penn State Nittany Lions are 7-5 as they finish their 2021 campaign with a 4-5 Big Ten record. Looking at the 13th ranked team in the nation, the BYU Cougars faced off against the unranked USC Trojans. BYU would end up beating USC 35-31. BYU outscored USC 21-13 in the first half, and then USC would outscore BYU 18-14 in the second half, as USC would actually go on to take a 31-28 lead, but then BYU would take the lead and eventually the win off of a 7-yard touchdown run from Jackson McChesney. On the losing end of this matchup, the winning end of this matchup, the 13th ranked BYU Cougars were led by their starting quarterback, Jaren Hall. He threw for 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He also carried the ball for 26 yards. That would be a total of 302 total yards of offense for Jaren Hall. BYU's leading rusher, Tyler Algier, finished with 21 carries for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 5 receptions for 35 yards. He had 146 total yards of offense. BYU's leading receiver, Keanu Hill, finished with 4 receptions for 72 yards and one of the 2 receiving touchdowns. Max Tooley and Ben Bywater led the team in tackles as they each had 13 of them. With this win, the 13th ranked BYU Cougars are now 10-2. With this loss, the unranked USC Trojans are 4-7. Taking a look now at what is going on with the 14th ranked team in the nation, the Wisconsin Badgers went to Minnesota to face off against the unranked Golden Gophers, and the Gophers would get the better of the Badgers. Minnesota beat Wisconsin 23-13. Wisconsin outscored Minnesota 10-6 in the first half, just for Minnesota to outscore Wisconsin 17-3 in the second half. Minnesota took the lead in the third quarter after they broke their 13-point tie off of a 27-yard touchdown pass from Tanner Morgan to Chris Outman. On the losing end of this matchup, the 14th ranked Wisconsin Badgers were led by their starting quarterback, Graham Mertz. He threw for 171 yards and an interception. He also ran for an additional 9, so he had 180 total yards of offense. Wisconsin's leading tackler on the defensive end was Leo Chenal. He had 14 tackles and half of a sack. Scott Nelson would have the team's lone interception, as the team's only touchdown would be a pick 6 from him. He would also finish with 3 tackles on the day. On the winning end of this matchup, the Minnesota Golden Gophers were led by their starting quarterback, Tanner Morgan. He threw for 199 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Their leading rusher, Kai Thomas, had 18 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Minnesota's leading tackler on the defensive side was Jack Gibbons. He had 10 tackles on the day as the team was unable to register a sack. Justin Wally finished with the team's lone interception. With this win, the unranked Golden Gophers are 8-4 as they are 6-3 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the 14th ranked Wisconsin Badgers are now 8-4 as well, as they also finished their regular season with a 6-3 record in the Big Ten. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 15th ranked team in the nation, the Texas A&M Aggies went to Baton Rouge to face off against the unranked LSU Tigers. LSU would end up beating Texas A&M 27-24. LSU outscored Texas A&M 17-7 in the second half. Texas A&M outscored LSU 17-10 in the second half. Texas A&M even held a 24-20 lead before LSU won the game with 20 seconds left, thanks to a 28-yard touchdown pass from Max Johnson to Jaray Jenkins. On the losing end of this matchup, the 15th ranked Aggies were led by their starting quarterback, Zach Calzada. Calzada threw for 242 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Jalen Preston, had 3 receptions for 57 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. Texas A&M's leading rusher, Devin Akane, would finish with 49 yards on the ground and 72 yards through the air. He would go on to finish with 121 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Antonio Johnson led the Aggies in tackles. He had 9 of them. Michael Clemens finished with 4 tackles as he had 3.5 sacks on the day. On the winning end of this matchup, the Tigers were led by their starting quarterback, Max Johnson. He threw for 306 yards and 3 touchdowns. LSU's leading rusher, Tyrion Davis-Price, finished with 19 carries for 84 yards, and he also had 2 receptions for 11 yards as he had 95 yards on the day. LSU's leading receiver, Jaray Jenkins, finished with 8 receptions for 169 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. Their leading tackler, Damone Clark, had 10 tackles as he had 2.5 sacks for himself. With this win, the unranked LSU Tigers are now 6-6, and with this loss, the 15th ranked Texas A&M Aggies are now 8-4 on the season. Now, taking a look at what's going on with the 17th ranked team in the nation, the Pittsburgh Panthers. They went all the way to Syracuse to face off against the unranked Orange. Pittsburgh ended up beating Syracuse 31-14 after outscoring Syracuse 14-7 in the first half and 17-7 in the second half. On the winning end of this matchup, the Pittsburgh Panthers were led by their starting quarterback, Kenny Pickett. He threw for 209 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for 4 yards. That's 213 yards of offense for him. Their leading rusher, Vincent Davis, had 79 yards on the ground and a yard through the air. That's 80 total yards of offense. Pittsburgh's leading receiver, Jordan Addison, had 11 receptions for 81 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Gavin Bartholomew, had 5 receptions for 50 yards as he had a touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball for Pittsburgh, Cam Bright finished with 8 tackles, leading the team. John Petroshin finished with 7 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Dayon Hayes finished with 3 tackles as he had 2 of the team's 5 sacks. And with this win, the 17th ranked Pittsburgh Panthers are now 10-2 on the season. They are 7-1 in the ACC. With this loss, the unranked Syracuse Orange are now 5-7 on the year. And taking a look at where they are in the ACC, at the moment they are sitting at 2-6. Staying within the ACC and looking at the 18th ranked team in the nation, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons went all the way to Boston to face off against the Boston College Eagles. Wake Forest would end up beating Boston College 41-10 after they outscored the Eagles 24-10 in the first half, and then they would go on to shut them out 17-0 in the second. The Demon Deacons were led by their starting quarterback, Sam Hartman. He threw for 236 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. He was also the team's leading rusher as he had 51 carries and a touchdown on the ground. He would go on to finish with 287 total yards of offense with his 4 touchdowns. Wake Forest's second leading rusher, or I guess tied for the leading rusher, or I guess Christian Turner, had 18 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Wake Forest's leading receiver, A.T. Perry, had 4 receptions for 81 yards as he had 2 of the team's 3 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, Rondell Bothroyd led the team in tackles. He had 7 of them. He even had a sack. Luigi Villain finished with 4 tackles as he had the other 2 sacks on the team. Jasir Taylor and Malik Mustafa would finish with the team's 2 interceptions as Malik Mustafa would finish with 4 tackles. And with this win, the 18th ranked Wake Forest Demon Deacons are now 10-2. They finished their season with a 7-1 ACC record. With this loss, the unranked Boston College Eagles will finish their regular season with a 6-6 record as they finish with a 2-6 ACC record. Taking a look now at what went down with the 22nd ranked team in the nation, the UTSA Roadrunners went all the way to North Texas to face off against the Mean Green. Unranked North Texas would end up beating 22nd ranked University of Texas San Antonio 45-23. North Texas outscored UTSA 31-13 in the first half before outscoring the Roadrunners 14-10 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the UTSA Roadrunners were led by their starting quarterback, or I guess they were led by their leading passer, Eddie Lee Marburger. He would end up throwing for 74 yards and a touchdown. He even ran for 3 yards. That would be 77 total yards of offense. UTSA's leading ball carrier, Frank Harris, had 10 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Their second leading ball carrier, Brendan Brady, finished with 5 carries for 71 yards. Their leading receiver, Trayvon Bradley, had 1 reception for 67 yards, and that 1 reception was the only receiving touchdown UTSA had. On the defensive side of the ball, Rashad Wisdom, Antonio Parks, Jamal Sam, and Jamal Ligon would finish with 6 tackles, leading the team. And on the winning end of this matchup, the North Texas Mean Green were led by their starting quarterback, Austin Aoun. Their leading rusher, Ikaika Ragsdale, finished with 20 carries for 146 yards, as he had 2 touchdowns on the day. Their second leading rusher, DeAndre Torrey, had 23 carries for 108 yards, as he had 3 rushing touchdowns. He even had 2 receptions for 19 yards, as he would go on to finish with 127 total yards of offense for the Mean Green. And their third leading rusher, Ayo Adeyi, finished with 7 carries for 77 yards, as he had the 6th rushing touchdown of the day. On the defensive side of the ball, North Texas's leading tackler was Larry Nixon III. He finished with 9 tackles. Their 4th leading tackler, Grayson Murphy, had 5 tackles for 3 sacks on the day. And with this win, the unranked North Texas Mean Green are now 6-6 on the season. With this loss, the 22nd ranked UTSA Roadrunners are now 11-1. And of course, following this matchup, they are now officially 7-1 in Conference USA on the season following this loss. And of course, with this win, it seems as though North Texas is 5-3 in Conference USA. Taking a look now at the 23rd ranked team in the nation, the Clemson Tigers went to Columbia, where they were able to completely shut out the unranked South Carolina Gamecocks. They won it 30-0. They would score 17 points in the first half and then 13 in the second. The Clemson Tigers were led by their starting quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei. He threw for 99 yards and an interception. He even ran for 33 yards. That's 132 total yards of offense. Clemson's leading rusher, Will Shipley, had 19 carries for 128 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading rusher, Kobe Pace, had 7 carries for 58 yards, as he had a rushing touchdown as well. He even had a 11-yard reception, so that's 69 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Balen Spector and James Skalski led the team in tackles, as they each had 6 tackles. And Andrew Booth Jr. would come through clutch, as alongside his 1 tackle, he would come through with 2 interceptions for the Tigers. With this win, the Clemson Tigers would finish this season with a 9-3 record. And of course, with this loss, the unranked South Carolina Gamecocks will finish their season with a 6-6 record on the year. Last but not least, taking you out to see what's going on with the 24th ranked team in the nation, the Houston Cougars faced off against the unranked UConn Huskies, who only came into this matchup with 1 win. Houston was able to beat UConn 47-17 after they outscored UConn 21-10 in the first half, and then they outscored them 24-7 in the second half. And of course, leading the way for the 24th ranked Houston Cougars, their starting quarterback, Clayton Tune, threw for 301 yards and 4 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Clayton Tune also ran for 7 yards, so that's 308 total yards in his final regular season game. Houston's leading rusher, Alton McCaskill, finished with 9 carries for 54 yards, as he had a touchdown on the ground. He also had a receiving yard through the air, so that's 55 total yards. And then their leading receiver, Jake Herslow, had 5 receptions for 111 yards, as he had a touchdown. Their second leading receiver, Jeremy Singleton, had 5 receptions for 100 yards, as he had a touchdown as well. And then their third leading receiver, Nathaniel Dell, had 6 receptions for 62 yards, as he had 2 receiving touchdowns on the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Gervarius Owens had 7 tackles on the day. Nelson Caesar finished with 3 tackles as he had a sack and a half on the defensive side. And with this win, the 24th ranked Houston Cougars will finish their season with an 11-1 record. And with this loss, the unranked UConn Huskies will finish their season with a 1-11 record to just completely flip the script. That is what college football is looking like following the final regular season games of the season. What's left are conference championships and then eventually bowl games. Taking a look now at what's going on with college basketball, starting out with the second-ranked team in the nation, the UCLA Bruins would face off against the unranked UNLV Rebels in Las Vegas. The Bruins would end up beating the Rebels 73-51. The Bruins won this game by 22 after UCLA outscored UNLV by 15 in the first half and by 7 in the second. The second-ranked UCLA Bruins were led in scoring by their starting guard, Jules Bernard out of LA. Bernard would go on to finish with 18 points and 2 blocks in 33 minutes. He shot 6 for 9 from the field, and he would go on to shoot 3 for 4 from 3. And with this win, the second-ranked UCLA Bruins are now 6-1 on the season. And with this loss, the unranked UNLV Rebels are now 4-3. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 16th ranked team in the nation, the St. Bonaventure Bonnies hosted the unranked Northern Iowa Panthers. Northern Iowa would beat St. Bonnies 90-80, winning by 10 after they outscored St. Bonnies by 13 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the 16th ranked Bonnies were led in scoring by their starting guard, Kyle Lofton. Their senior out of Hillside, New Jersey, would go on to finish with 21 points and 7 assists alongside 4 steals in 40 minutes. Lofton shot 4 for 11 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and 10 for 11 from the foul line. Their starting guard, Dominic Welch, would go on to finish with 20 points of his own. He did so alongside 7 rebounds in 37 minutes as he shot 7 for 14 from the field and 6 for 13 from 3. The unranked Northern Iowa Panthers on the winning end of this matchup were led in scoring by their starting guard, A.J. Green, their junior out of Iowa. A.J. Green will go on to finish with 35 points and 5 rebounds in 36 minutes. He shot 11 for 18 from the field, 9 for 15 from 3, and he shot 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the unranked Northern Iowa Panthers are 2-3, and with this loss, the 16th ranked St. Bonaventure Bonnies are 5-1 as they picked up their very first loss of the season at home. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 17th ranked team in the nation, the Arizona Wildcats hosted the unranked Sacramento State Hornets. Arizona would end up beating Sacramento State 105-59, winning this game by 46 after they outscored Sacramento State by 25 in the first half and by 21 in the second. The 17th ranked Wildcats were led in scoring by their starting forward, Azuolas Tubelis. Their sophomore out of Lithuania would go on to finish with 22 points and 6 rebounds in 20 minutes. He shot 9 for 13 from the field. He made his only 3-point attempt, and he shot 3 for 4 from the foul line. Arizona's starting center, Christian Koloko, would go on to finish with 20 points as well, in 7 rebounds, as well as 2 steals in 15 minutes, as he shot 8 for 10 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. Last but not least for the day, take you to look and see what's going on with the 18th ranked team in the nation. The BYU Cougars would go on to face off against the Utah Utes, who were unranked. BYU would end up beating Utah 75-64, winning the game by 11 after they outscored Utah by 13 in the second half. The 18th ranked Cougars were led in scoring by their starting guard, Tejon Lucas. Their senior out of Milwaukee would go on to finish with 18 points in 21 minutes. He shot 8 for 10 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from 3. With this win, the 18th ranked BYU Cougars are 6-0, still undefeated, and with this loss, the unranked Utah Utes are 5-1 as they picked up their very first loss to a ranked opponent. And of course, that is what college sports is looking like at the moment. And with the NFL picking up today, taking a look to see what's going on with the NBA, starting off in Atlanta. The Hawks would host the New York Knicks, and the Knicks would end up beating the Hawks 99-90 in what was a rematch of the first round of the playoffs. Last year, the Knicks outscored the Hawks by 10 points in the third quarter. That would be the difference. On the losing end of this matchup, the Atlanta Hawks were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard out of Oklahoma, Trae Young. He finished with 33 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists in 39 minutes. Trae Young shot 10 for 12 from the field, 5 for 10 from 3, and 8 for 10 from the foul line on the night. On the winning end of this matchup, the New York Knicks were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Alec Burks. He finished with 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 steals in 39 minutes. He shot 7 for 17 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 5 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting shooting guard, Evan Fournier, finished with 20 points in 29 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the New York Knicks are now 90. They are now 11-9, and of course, with this loss, the Atlanta Hawks are now 11-10. Jumping out to Philadelphia, the Philadelphia 76ers hosted the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves would end up beating the Philadelphia 76ers in second overtime. They won this one 121-120, beating Philadelphia by a combined 21-20 in the overtime periods. In the losing end of this matchup, the Sixers were led in scoring by their elite starting center, Joel Embiid. He finished with 42 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in 45 minutes. He shot 12 for 23 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 16 for 21 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Timberwolves were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard, D'Angelo Russell. He finished with 35 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 5 turnovers in 44 minutes. D'Lo shot 13 for 25 from the field, 6 for 10 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Their elite starting center, Karl-Anthony Towns, finished with 28 points and 10 rebounds as he fouled out in 37 minutes. Cat finished shooting 11 for 16 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and 3 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 10-10. With this loss, the Philadelphia 76ers are now also 10-10. Taking a look now at what's going on in Brooklyn, the Nets hosted the scorching hot Phoenix Suns. The Suns were able to beat the Nets 113-107. They won this game by 6 points after they outscored the Nets by 14 points in the first quarter and basically ran away with that lead. The Nets were on the losing end of this matchup, were led in scoring by their goated starting power forward, Kevin Durant. Durant finished with 39 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals, and 6 turnovers. As the former NBA MVP played 45 minutes, he would shoot 13 for 28 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 9 for 11 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard, former MVP James Harden, finished with 12 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, and 7 turnovers in 40 minutes. Harden shot 4 for 15 from the field and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Phoenix Suns were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Kentucky, Devin Booker. He finished with 30 points and 4 assists in 32 minutes as he shot 9 for 18 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 8 for 8 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Chris Paul, finished with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 9 for 19 from the field, and he would shoot 3 for 8 from 3, as well as 1 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 7-3 on the year, and with this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 14-6. Taking a look now at what's going on in Cleveland, the Cavaliers hosted the Orlando Magic. The Cavs would end up beating the Magic 105-92 after they outscored the Magic by 8 points in the second half. The Magic were led in scoring by their starting center, Wendell Carter Jr. out of Duke. He finished with 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 steals in 32 minutes. Wendell Carter shot 8 for 13 from the field, and he shot a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. The Cleveland Cavaliers on the winning end were led in scoring by their starting point guard out of Vanderbilt, Darius Garland. He finished with 26 points, 11 assists. He did all this in 36 minutes as he shot 11 for 21 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and he made one of his 2 free throw attempts on the night. Their starting power forward out of Arizona, Lauri Markkanen, would go on to finish with 20 points and 5 rebounds in 30 32 minutes. He shot 8 for 13 from the field, and he made 4 of his 8 3-point attempts on the night. With this win, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 10-10, and with this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 4-17. Taking a look now at what's going on in Chicago, the Bulls hosted the Miami Heat. The Heat would end up beating the Bulls 107-104. They would win this game by 3 after they had to outscore the Bulls by 5 in the fourth quarter. The Bulls on the losing end of this matchup were led in scoring by their starting small forward, DeMar DeRozan. He finished with 28 points and 7 rebounds in 41 minutes as the USC product shot 11 for 19 from the field and 6 for 7 from the foul line. Off the bench, their shooting guard Alex Caruso would finish with 22 points and 6 assists in 34 minutes. Caruso shot 6 for 8 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and he would end up shooting a perfect 7 for 7 from the foul line. And on the winning end of this matchup, the Miami Heat were led in scoring by their point guard off the bench, Gabe Vincent. He finished with 20 points and 5 assists in 31 minutes. Vincent shot 6 for 11 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. Their elite starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, finished with 19 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, finished with 18 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 steals in 36 minutes, as he shot 6 for 15 from the field and 6 for 7 from the foul line. Their elite starting center, Bam Adebayo, would finish with 9 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in 33 minutes. He shot 4 for 9 from the field, and he made 1 of his 2 free throws on the night. With this win, the Miami Heat are 13-7, and with this loss, the Chicago Bulls are now 13-8. Looking to see what's going on in Houston, the Rockets hosted the Charlotte Hornets and would beat the Hornets 146-143 in overtime. They would outscore Charlotte 11-8 after Houston would eventually, it was just a lot of back and forth quarters basically for both teams. On the losing end of this matchup, the Charlotte Hornets were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Terry Rozier. He finished with 31 points and 5 assists in 43 minutes as he shot 9 for 23 from the field, 6 for 16 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. Their shooting guard off the bench, Kelly Oubre Jr., would finish with 23 points, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in 36 minutes. Oubre shot 8 for 19 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting small forward, Miles Bridges, finished with 22 points and 5 rebounds in 33 minutes as he shot 8 for 12 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. Their fourth leading scorer, their starting small forward, Gordon Hayward out of Butler, finished with 21 points in 35 minutes as he shot 6 for 16 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, as well as he shot 7 for 9 from the foul line. And their elite starting point guard, LaMelo Ball, would finish with 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 13 assists in 40 minutes as he shot 7 for 19 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and he shot a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Houston Rockets were led in scoring by their starting center, Christian Wood. Wood finished with 33 points, 16 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 41 minutes. He shot 13 for 19 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and 5 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting shooting guard out of USC, Kevin Porter Jr., finished with 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 12 assists in 42 minutes. He shot 7 for 16 from the field. Their starting shooting guard, Eric Gordon, would finish with 22 points and 7 assists in 37 minutes. He shot 8 for 14 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. And then, of course, the Houston Rockets starting shooting guard, Garrison Matthews out of Lipscomb, would go on to finish with 20 points in 38 minutes. He shot 6 for 10 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. With a combined 8 20-point scorers in this game, this is a very big one. And with this win, the Houston Rockets are now 3-16. All of their wins coming at home. And with this loss, the Charlotte Hornets are now 13-9 on the season. Taking a look now at what is going on in Dallas, the Mavericks hosted the Wizards. The Wizards would end up beating the Dallas Mavericks 120-114, winning the game by 6 after they had to outscore the Mavericks by 14 in the second half in order to get here in the first place. The Mavericks on the losing end were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard out of Slovenia, Luka Doncic. He finished with 33 points, 4 rebounds, and 10 assists in 37 minutes, as he shot 13 for 25 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and he shot 4 for 7 from the foul line. The Washington Wizards on the winning end of this matchup were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Bradley Beal. He finished with 26 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 38 minutes. Beal shot 10 for 14 from the field. He made his only three-point attempt of the night, and he went 5 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting small forward, Kyle Kuzma, finished with 22 points and 9 rebounds in 35 minutes. He shot 7 for 14 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Washington Wizards are now 13-7, and with this loss, the Dallas Mavericks are now 10-8. And of course, jumping out to Salt Lake City, the Utah Jazz hosted the New Orleans Pelicans. The Jazz would beat the Pelicans 127-105. They would win this game by 22 after they outscored the Pelicans by 19 points in the first half and by an additional 10 in the third. The Pelicans on the losing end were led in scoring by their center off the bench out of Texas, Jackson Hayes. He finished with 15 points in 8 minutes as he shot 5 for 6 from the field, a perfect 3 for 3 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward, Brandon Ingram, finished with 11 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in 28 minutes. Ingram shot 4 for 14 from the field and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. The Utah Jazz were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell. He finished with 21 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 27 minutes. Mitchell shot 9 for 17 from the field and 3 for 6 from 3. Their starting point guard, former All-Star Mike Conley, finished with 20 points in 24 minutes as he shot 8 for 12 from the field and 4 for 7 from 3. Their point guard off the bench, former Sixth Man of the Year, Jordan Clarkson, finished with 20 points in 26 minutes. He shot 8 for 13 from the field and he shot 4 for 6 from 3. Their elite starting center out of France, Rudy Gobert, would finish with 6 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 27 minutes as he shot 2 for 4 from the field and he shot 2 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Utah Jazz are 13-7, and with this loss, the New Orleans Pelicans are 5-17. So that is what the NBA is looking like following yesterday's matchups, and of course taking a look at to see what's going on with the domestic leagues. Starting off in England with the Premier League, Arsenal was able to beat Newcastle United 2-0 as its first goal came from its young English national Bukayo Saka. Liverpool hosted Southampton was able to pull off a 4-0 win as 2 of their goals came from their Portuguese forward Diogo Jota. Their third goal will come from their elite Spanish midfielder Thiago Alcantara, and their last goal will come from their elite Dutch defender, Virgil van Dijk. Taking a look at what's going on in La Liga, Barcelona was able to beat Villarreal, the reigning Europa League champs, 3-1, as their first goal will come from their elite Dutch midfielder, Frenkie de Jong. Their second goal will come from their French striker, Memphis Depay, and their last goal will come from their Brazilian forward, Philippe Coutinho, off of a penalty kick. Taking a look at what's going on in the German Bundesliga, the reigning Bundesliga champs, Bayern Munich, hosted unranked Arminia Bielefeld and was able to pull off a 1-0 win as its lone goal came from its elite German winger, Leroy Sané. Borussia Dortmund went to Wolfsburg and was able to pull away with a 3-1 win as its third and final goal came from its elite Norwegian striker, Erling Haaland, as he came on as a sub coming back from injury. Taking a look at what's going on in Serie A, Juventus hosted Atalanta, and Atalanta would end up beating Juventus 1-0 off of a 28th minute goal from Zapata. And Inter Milan went to Venice to beat Venezia 2-0 as its second goal will come from Lautaro Martinez in the 96th minute off of a penalty kick. And that's really everything that's big coming from yesterday. And once all of today's matchups from Sunday, November 28th are done, I will come back tomorrow for another episode of The Elite. And until then, I want to thank everyone once again for listening. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Peace out.